So how many of you would welcome more success in your personal and professional life? All right, well that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about elevating success. Do you know that 85 to 90% of our life is run by our habits? 85 to 90% of our life is run by our habits. Now some of those habits serve us, and some of those habits don't serve us. So we're going to talk about elevating success today. I'm going to share with you 3 principles that separate highly successful people from ordinary people. And my goal is for you to leave here today inspired to create a new level of success, whatever that is for you. So this is a picture of my family when I was a teenager. This was the 80s, keep that in mind. That hair was in style then. Maybe it wasn't, but it was, right? Some people here understand? So my teenage years were actually a really challenging time for me. I remember, I'll never forget actually, when I was 15 years old, I was a sophomore in high school, and every day I had to walk up to the lunch lady, softly tell her my name, and hand her a quarter. And I felt embarrassed and ashamed. And the reason I felt embarrassed was that I was on reduced lunch. So while my friends or a lot of my classmates paid $1.25 for lunch, I only paid 25 cents. I remember begging my mom, can I bring my lunch to school so I could not have that embarrassment? She said, well, it's practically free. No, you have to buy your lunch. So my parents really struggled with money during my teenage years. I was the oldest of 5, as you can see in this picture. My youngest brother, was almost 16 years younger than me, and that was also embarrassing. When your mom has a baby and you're a teenager, that's embarrassing. Another challenging time. So my parents argued a lot about money. They had challenges. We heard things like possible foreclosure or possible repossession of the car. So it was a challenging environment to be in. But this was a pivotal time in my life. Because looking back, I can see that there was a lot of positivity that came out of that situation. Although at the time it didn't feel that way, I started to get clarity about what I wanted in my life. And what I wanted was to not be poor. So this gave me the drive and the determination to go out and find a better way, to figure out how to come out of my circumstances and to create a life that I loved. So at a young age, I started studying success. And I would read about different people and what did they do differently? How did they create this success in their life? And that's what I want to share with you today. So I want to share with you my over 25 years of studying success. And my hope is that you can take away something today to apply to your own life to elevate your success. So this is the book that Jamie had mentioned by Jack Canfield, The Success Principles. I read this book about 4 years ago and was highly impressed by it because it really culminated everything I had ever studied about success in my life. It's a book that has 67 principles that if you apply to your life, you will become successful. And I was so impressed with this that I learned that I could actually work with Jack. So 2 years ago, I went and mentored with Jack for 2 weeks with a small group of trainers, and I became certified in this material, not only to share it with other people, but also to apply it to my own life. And so I've been applying these principles in my life, and I've seen a huge difference. And we're going to work on 3 principles today from this book. I'm going to show you three principles that you can immediately take here and apply to your life to see more success. So how many of you would rather take the shortcut to success? Anyone want the shortcut? Who would like to take the long way? Anyone want to take the long way? No. We want the shortcut, right? So that's what these principles are going to teach you, the shortcut of how to get from where you are. And I know many of you are very successful, but even more of what you want in life. Everything that we want is outside of our comfort zone. So we're going to talk about how you can create more of that in your life. So Jim Rohn said you can't hire other people to do your push-ups for you. Wouldn't that be great? If we could hire other people to go to the gym or to work out for us, but we can't hire other people to do our push-ups for us. So everything I'm going to talk about today are things that you personally need to do. These are things that you personally need to do. They are not delegatable tasks. That if you do these things in your life, you will start to see more success, more joy, more happiness, whatever it is that you want. We all know that if you want a better relationship, it can't just be your spouse putting in the effort, it has to be both of you, right? If you want to get in better shape, you can't just talk about it, you have to actually take the steps. So these are things today that you actually need to do. All right, I'm from New York. Any New Yorkers here? I know Kathy is. So, we're very over-exuberant as New Yorkers. So I'm a New York Yankee fan, and my favorite Yankee, Derek Jeter, he says, you don't accidentally show up in the World Series.
So true.
You don't accidentally show up in the World Series. It takes persistence, it takes effort, it takes deliberate action every day to get to that point of success. You don't just accidentally show up one day and you're successful. There's a formula, there are things that you can do regularly that can create that success and lead you towards that. So Jack also co-authored a book called The Power of Focus. And for this book, they researched over 2,000 highly successful people. They were looking to find out what was it that separated highly successful people from ordinary people. What separates highly successful people from ordinary people? And they found that there are 3 things. Number 1, they have unusual clarity. They have unusual clarity about what they want in life and where they want to go. Number 2, they've developed powerful success habits, disciplines of success, things that they do every day to reach those goals or that vision that they have for their life. And number 3, they take 100% responsibility and they are action-oriented. So they don't blame, they don't complain, they take 100% responsibility for their life. And this is what we're going to focus on the first thing today, is this principle around taking 100% responsibility for your life and your results. This is actually the first principle in Jack's book because it's the foundation of everything else. People who take 100% responsibility for their life and their results tend to live a better life. So there's a formula I want to share with you that if you leave here today and apply this one thing to your life and completely shift your perspective and how you live your life. This formula is E plus R equals O. E plus R equals O. Event plus your response equals your outcome. Event plus your response equals your outcome. By the way, there's some handouts for you there, so hopefully you have those, so you don't mind to see some of you writing, which is great. I'm a big writer. But everything's in your handouts too. You can follow along. We're going to do a couple of exercises. So event plus response equals your outcome. Now, when most people aren't happy with something in their life, they're complaining about their outcome. I'm not in shape. I don't have the money I want. I don't like my job. I don't have a great relationship. My child won't talk to me. Whatever it is. But these are outcomes of an earlier response. So let's imagine that someone puts a piece of cake in front of me. I have a couple actions I could take. I could eat that cake, which is what I would probably do. Or I could say, I'm watching what I eat and not eat that cake. So the cake is the event. The cake being put in front of you is the event. You have a choice of what you will do. That's your response. Will that impact your outcome? Well, if it's every day, probably, right? Or if someone gives me $2,000, I could say, let's all go out after this, have a nice glass of Cabernet or whatever your choice of beverage is. It's all on me. Or I can invest that $2,000. So the $2,000 is the event. 2 different responses. Will I have a different outcome? Yeah, probably in a couple of years I'll have a different outcome of more money if I invest it. So the challenge here is that most people do one of 2 things when they're not happy. They either complain about their outcomes or they blame the event. The economy, the recession, my husband, my kids, my boss, my job, traffic. People either complain about the outcomes or they blame the event. The challenge with this is that when we do that, we're giving up our power. We're putting ourselves in victim mode. So we have to get around this blaming and complaining. Now, I know we're human, so I don't expect that you would all leave here today and never complain and blame. I know that's not possible. But what I am suggesting is you start to notice how much that you are complaining and blaming in your life. And start to shift yourself out of that mode because it keeps you in the victim mode. You can't do anything when you're in that victim mode. So getting away from blaming the event or complaining our outcomes, the power is in our response. That's where we have the power to change and to change our outcomes. How many of you have ever complained in your life? Raise your hand. We all have, I know. Yeah, so again, it's about noticing. So I complained a lot. So after my teenage years, I ended up going to Syracuse University for 4 years, and I graduated with a degree in speech communication and $40,000 in debt. And so I did a lot of blaming and complaining. I blame my parents again. I blame my parents for the fact that they couldn't pay for my college because they weren't good with money. So a lot of my friends, their parents paid for all of their college, and I was envious of that. I thought, these people have a better opportunity than me. I'm graduating with $40,000 in debt. You know, I'm already behind the 8 ball. How am I going to succeed? My friends don't have that problem, so I blame my parents. I blame my parents for not counseling me that going to a private school was probably not the best idea when you have no money. So, you know, I could have gone to a state school and probably graduated with less debt, but I decided I wanted to go to Syracuse because I love the ivy on the buildings. Yes. Seriously. When I visited, it's so beautiful there. I went and it was a beautiful campus. And apparently at the time, that was what was important to me. So I went to Syracuse. So I blame my parents for not counseling me on that. I blame my parents for the fact that I had to move home after college because I couldn't obviously afford to go and live on my own. And then I also blame my parents for charging me rent when I moved home after I graduated college. One more, I blame them for having 5 kids because I thought, well, why would you have 5 kids if you can't afford 5 kids? Why not have less kids so that you can pay for your children, right? So here's the thing that I learned. Now that I'm older and I look back on my life, I can realize that my parents did the best they could. They did the best they could with their circumstances, and in fact, this situation was a gift for me. Sometimes our disadvantages can become our advantages. Our disadvantages and our struggles in life can become our advantages. Because when you have those, it gives you a drive to go out and overcome that and create something bigger, create something better for yourself. And that's exactly what I did. So after a couple years, I realized that complaining and blaming wasn't going to get rid of my $40,000 of debt, was it? It wasn't helping me. I was putting myself in victim mode. So I realized I had to do something different. So I started attacking that debt. It took me about 13 years to pay it off, but I did. I finally got to the point where I could pay that off, and I felt good about that. I put myself through graduate school, didn't have any debt when I graduated graduate school. So I created that by taking myself out of that victim mode and taking back my choice and my power. So we have to give up all complaining. When you're complaining, there's something you prefer that you're not willing to change. When you're complaining, there's something that you prefer that you're not willing to change because it's a risk to change it. So we'd rather complain than take the risk. So I'd rather complain about my boss than take the risk of having a conversation with my boss about not being happy at my job. Or I'd rather complain about my spouse than have to risk having to have that conversation. Or I'd rather complain about my job than having to go out and find a new job because it's uncomfortable and then I'm starting over. You see how that works? Most of us would rather complain than take the risk of making the change in our life. So that's why we complain. We put ourselves in victim mode. We'd rather not have to do that change. We'd rather not have to take that risk. Remember Dr. Martin Luther King's speech, I had to complain? Is that what he said? No, he didn't say that. He has some legitimate things to complain about. Yeah, but he said, I have a dream. He realized that you focus on what you want, not on what you don't want. When you focus on what you want, there's a vision for it. There's potential. You feel excited. When you focus on what you don't want, you're frustrated, you're angry. So you want to shift your thinking to what you want, not what you don't want. I truly believe that we attract what we're thinking about. And if we're thinking about negative things, we attract more of that. We see more of that in our lives. This is Amy Purdy. Some of you may have seen her on Dancing with the Stars a few years ago. Amy Purdy, when she was 19 years old, she was living in Las Vegas. and she was working as a massage therapist. And she loved to snowboard. Her passion was to snowboard around the world. And one day she came home with flu-like symptoms, and within 24 hours she was in the hospital on life support with a 2% chance of living. She was in the hospital for 2.5 months. She lost her spleen, both her kidneys, hearing in her left ear, and both her legs had to be amputated from the knee down. Now, I'm sure that she did some complaining and blaming in the beginning. I'm sure there was a mourning period for her. But the incredible thing about this story is that within 4 months of leaving the hospital, she was back on a snowboard. She was on a snowboard with prosthetic legs, and she ended up becoming a snowboard Paralympic medalist. How many of us would have, in that circumstance, changed our response to create that in our life? That's the power that we have. There are many ways her life could have gone, but she took back that power and she changed her response. She couldn't change the event, but she could change her response. George Washington Carver said, 99% of all failures come from people who are in the habit of making excuses. Some people are better at making excuses than they are at producing results. And have you ever worked with someone like that? Yeah. So we want to also banish all excuses. So Jack Canfield, as I mentioned, he co-authored the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. They were rejected over 144 times before he was published. They kept going and going and going and persevering, believing in this message. The publisher said, no one is going to buy a book of a collection of stories. How many of you have a Chicken Soup for the Soul book in your house? Yeah, almost everybody here. No one was going to buy a book of a collection of short stories. But they kept going, they believed in it, and they kept going. Jack was 49 years old when Chicken Soup for the Soul was published. So he had worked many, many years before to be able to get to that point of success in his life. I mentioned that our disadvantages can become our advantages. Our struggles, whatever you've been through in your life, your circumstances can become the advantages to you, the power for you in your life. And it's incredible when you see there's a trend happening, if you've noticed, that sometimes children who are handed everything, or people who grow up being handed a car or their tuition's paid for, they have everything they ever need, don't do much with their life. Some of them don't do much with their life. Do you know there's actually a statistic that 70% of wealthy families lose their wealth by the second generation. 90% of wealthy families lose their wealth by the third generation. Isn't that incredible? Why is that? Because the second and third generation don't have to work hard for it. They were handed it. So our disadvantages can become our advantages. It can help us succeed and reach a new level of life. So there's only 3 responses that you have control over in your life. The first is your behavior, your actions, how you show up in the world. The second are your thoughts, what you think to yourself, what you tell yourself. Do you tell yourself positive things, or do you tell yourself negative things? And the third is imagery, your vision, the pictures you create in your head, the vision for your future. What does that look like for you? Those are the things that we have control over in our life. So we're going to do an exercise at your table. I'd love for you to partner up with someone. If you have an odd number at your table, that's fine. When we're saying we can't, we're putting the issue outside of ourselves. So I can't answer all my emails. Like, it's not, I don't have the power over that. I'm going to put it outside of myself. I can't save for retirement. We're really complaining, or we're shifting the ownership. When you say I won't, all of a sudden, did any of you feel a little bit more guilty when you said won't? No. You feel guilty because you're making a statement. You realize that you do have the power to do it. You're choosing not to. So I won't lose that last 5 pounds. Well, that's now me saying that I'm declaring I'm not going to lose those 5 pounds. Or I'm choosing not to lose those 5 pounds. All of a sudden, that's different. So this is, remember the highly successful people I told you about before? They don't blame, they don't complain. They avoid the word can't. They realize that they have the power to create anything they want. But we use this, we use can't I can't find enough time. How many of you ever blamed time in the past day? How many of you have ever said, oh, we have time? Yeah. So time is the event. Time is not changeable. Time is the event. It's our response to time that will change our outcomes. And who has the power to change their response to time? We do. This is something I've been more cognizant of. I'm not 100% successful yet, but I've really been more cognizant of not blaming time for things. I have, as Jamie mentioned, I have 3 kids, 7 and under, and my house is busy. It doesn't feel a lot of times that there's time, but I realize I have a choice, and I'm choosing how to spend my time every day, and I get to choose that. And now that I'm more conscious of it, I'm more conscious of my choices as well. For example, with 3 kids in school, I realized that you don't have to go to every birthday party. I have a choice to say no. So I've chosen, we're going to go to certain birthday parties, but we're not going to 50 birthday parties throughout the year. We don't have time for that. We're making a choice. I'm choosing how to use my time. So time is the event. It's our response to time. So just even leave here today and shift your thinking around that. And try not to blame time. Don't make it outside of yourself. Think of how you have the power to change that. So there are no can'ts, there are only I choose not to's. Everything is a choice. Everything is a choice. We're going to do one exercise, another exercise at your tables. So it's great to go through an exercise, but it's the implementation piece. And why do you think we say 5% and not 100%? It's attainable. Yeah, so I mean, we're working up to 100% of responsibility. But even if you were to just take 5% more responsibility, I suggest picking one in each of those areas and focusing on those first. We tend to become overwhelmed when we put too many goals or we try to change too many things. So we can also try to create new habits to crowd out the bad habits. Instead of just getting rid of all the bad habits, we start to create more successful habits to start to crowd out those negative habits. Great, thank you for going through that exercise. So these are my 3 kids. Thank you. Olivia is in the middle, she's 7.5. She challenged, when they read in my bio that I'm still learning how to be a parent, and she's the reason. Many of you have that strong-willed, that child, she's my strong-willed child, Olivia. So she's 7.5, Luca is 5.5, and Clara is 3.5. And about a year ago, my husband and I were talking about the traits, the habits, things that we want to make sure that we cultivate in our kids. And so the typical things like we want them to be kind, we want them to be generous and confident and caring people. Of course, those came up on the list, things we want to foster in them. But we also talked about habits. What kind of habits can we instill in them at a young age so they have a better chance for success in life? Things that maybe we didn't do, that as we start young, that it becomes just part of their life, and it's just a good habit. And my husband Reno said, I think we should start having Olivia make her bed in the morning. He said, this is just a small win every morning. You wake up, it's taking pride in your environment. You know, she feels good, like she accomplished something, and it's teaching her that, you know, we keep our things clean and nice and organized. And I said, I really like that idea. I love that idea, to have Olivia start making her bed. But don't you think we should start making our bed first? See, people don't follow what you say. People follow what you do. People don't follow what you say. They follow what you do. So there's no way we're going to get Olivia. Anyone who has a strong-willed child knows, well, why don't you make your bed, Mommy? So I'm happy to report that for over a year, we have been making our bed every morning. And we just started a few weeks ago with Olivia, talking with her. I don't think she remembers that we didn't make our bed. So it's been a year, we've had enough time. Now she's starting to make her bed. But how many times do we expect more from others than we expect from ourselves? Think about this even from a leadership perspective, those of you who are leaders in organizations. My experience is that many times we as leaders expect something from our staff that we ourselves don't model. We don't model that accountability. Maybe we show up late to meetings, or we don't coach our staff, yet we expect our staff to coach their staff. or whatever it is. Performance evaluations, not doing them on time. That's a big one I see in organizations. So, and it's the small things even at home, with your kids or with colleagues or with people important in your life. Do you model that? People don't follow what you say, they follow what you do. So part of taking 100% responsibility is starting to model that for the people around you, for yourself to be successful, and also for others, to build others up. So there's one last piece I want to do around responsibility before we move on to the next principle. What are some things that you have to do? What are some things you have to do?
Pay taxes.
Pay taxes. All right, do you have to pay your taxes? Yeah. Are there people who don't pay their taxes?
Yeah.
Okay, what happens if you don't pay your taxes? We have some people in credit unions here. What happens when you don't pay your taxes? Maybe they put a freeze on your account, a lien on your house. Eventually, you might go to jail. Eventually, for years. Okay. Okay. So you have to pay your taxes. No. What else? What's something else you have to do? Take care of your kids. Do you have to take care of your kids? Yes. Are there people in this world who do not take care of their kids?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you don't have to take care of your kids. What's something else you have to do? Eat. Do you have to eat?
Yes.
Are there people who don't eat?
Yes.
There are people who do. You have to sleep?
Yes.
You should sleep. You should sleep, but do you have to? Do you have to breathe? You have to sleep. Are there people who choose to not breathe in this world? People take their life, right? They choose to stop breathing. All right, so my point here is that everything is a choice. No one can make you do anything. Now, there are consequences to choices. So you don't pay your taxes, there are consequences for not paying your taxes. You don't feed your kids, there are consequences to not feeding your kids. But everything is a choice. A lot of us, again, we put ourselves in victim mindset. We say, well, I have to go to work every day. Or I have to pay the bills. Where again, it's about shifting your mindset out of that you get to, you choose to, you have a choice. I used to complain when I have to write my taxes, like some of you here who are entrepreneurs. It's like I feel like I'm paying a lot of taxes. And now I've changed that around over the past few years. I celebrate writing a check to the government. I celebrate because I realize I'm making money, so I can write a check to the government. I choose to own a business, best decision I've ever done, and I choose not to go to a job every day, a job where I work for someone else. I get to write a check to the government for a nice amount. Or I get to write a check for my bills because I can afford it. I can afford to have electricity, I can afford to have water, all these things. So shift, everything is a choice. The last thing you have a choice about is your attitude. So this is Viktor Frankl. He wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. He was in a concentration camp in World War II, and devastation, awful things around him. He said that you might own my body, but you will never own my spirit. You might own my body, but you will never own my spirit. And he chose positivity. That was a challenging situation, but he chose positivity, and he lived. He lived to tell his story. So we always have a choice about our attitude. If you haven't seen the movie Life is Beautiful, it's a fantastic illustration of this concept. Life is Beautiful, Italian movie. You always have a choice about your attitude. All right, so there's, before we move into this next section, I want to illustrate a point. I mentioned to you that the book Jack Canfield has, The Success Principles, fantastic book. I have this book here. Who would like it? Now that didn't take long. What did she do that no one else did?
Took action.
She got up and took it, right? Some of you are raising your hands. Usually it takes a little longer before some of you. So what were you telling yourself in that moment? Why did someone else get up and take that book?
Well, because she was in front.
She was in your way.
I thought there was going to be some kind of game.
You thought there was a process. You were waiting further instructions.
Yeah.
What else?
She knew what she wanted. She went after it.
She knew she wanted. She went after it. Okay, she got there faster. What else? Other reasons?
Boundary mindset.
Boundary mindset, like maybe I'm gonna look stupid if I get up and like foolish. Is that what she really means? I don't really know.
Is she giving it away?
Is she giving it away? I'm not so sure. Like I don't want to overstep my bounds. Just with that.
Do you have more books?
Do I have more? She's a winner of the book today. So she took the risk. Yeah. So waiting for permission.
Oh my goodness.
Waiting for permission. So in that moment, what you told yourself, and some of you didn't even have time to think probably, but for those of you, she was fast. She was really fast. Often those are the things we tell ourselves to keep us from taking action.
Wow.
You know, waiting for permission, waiting for further instructions. I don't want to look foolish. These are sometimes the things we tell ourselves. So be cognizant of those things that you tell yourself that can hold you back from taking the actions you need to take in life. This is Joy Johnson. She started running at the age of 59. She ran 25 consecutive marathons, New York City marathons, before she died at the age of 86. It's never too late. It's never too late. People say, oh, I'm midlife. It's never too late to create the success you want. Albert Einstein, he wasn't able to speak until he was almost 4 years old, and his teacher said he would never amount to much.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Nobody remembers the teacher's name.
No one remembers the teacher's name. Right. They remember him, right? Oprah Winfrey. You know her, right? She was demoted from her job as a news anchor, said she wasn't fit for television. Sometimes our disadvantages become our advantages. Our disadvantages become our advantages. All right, so what's the one thing that most separates the winners from the losers in life?
Wow.
They take action. They take action. This is the next success principle. Winners take action. All the things that we're talking about today, your beliefs, your habits, all of those things are important. But the most important thing, the most important principle for success is action. Taking action. This is success principle number 13. The world doesn't pay you for what you know. The world pays you for what you do. Any of you know really, really, really smart people who never did much with their life? Yeah, it's all the intelligence in the world is not going to make you successful. In fact, a lot of research has shown that sometimes being at a disadvantage makes you more successful. There's a book by Malcolm Gladwell called David and Goliath, where they talk about, similar to my story, of if you grew up in a disadvantaged way, sometimes you become more successful. So taking action is important. Yet what most of us do, or a lot of us do, is we analyze, we plan, we think, we want to prepare and get things perfect. We want things to be just right before we take that action. But you learn more from taking action than you ever will by reading books or researching. Taking action is the important piece. You can't make mistakes unless you take action. So what are you holding back? What are you not taking action on? So probably about 8 or 9 years ago, I had heard about the benefits of meditation, and I ordered some books and I started reading about meditation and just learning more, and there are a lot of benefits of it, and ordered more books on meditation. The problem was I just wasn't meditating. So I had all these books, but I wasn't meditating. It's great to know about the benefits, but I wasn't experiencing any of it. I was reading a lot about meditation. Finally, 2.5 years ago, I just got frustrated with myself. This is part of when I started working with Jack, and I realized, for me, all the places in my life that I start and stop, or I say I want to do things, or I waste time, or I analyze, or I don't take action. And so my husband, I signed him up. He sort of went willingly. I said, guess what? We're going to learn about meditation. He said, what? Like, why do I want to do that? Trust me, you're going to like it. So we enrolled in a transcendental meditation class about 2.5 years ago and learned to meditate. And now I meditate. I can experience the benefits. All those years of reading about it and having books on my bookshelf and talking about it with friends, none of that did anything in my life. It wasn't until I finally took the action and put it in place that it made a difference. So taking action is a really important piece of success. But why do we avoid changing? Go ahead and fold your hands. How many of you have your left thumb on top? Raise your hand. About half the room. How many of you have your right thumb on top? Which is the correct way? Your way, right? Okay. Yeah, there's no correct way. Now go ahead and switch. Switch the thumb. Ooh, somebody's like, ooh, what does that feel like? Weird, uncomfortable. Oh, good. What does that feel like to you over here? Uncomfortable, awkward. What do you want to do right now? Switch it back. Switch it back. Yeah, so this is like our habits. When we become uncomfortable, we just want to switch it back. So sometimes taking action is uncomfortable. But we have habits that we've formed over the years that may not serve us. And so we revert back to those old habits because they feel comfortable. Taking action is uncomfortable, otherwise we would just do it. Calling up those prospects and asking for business is challenging. It doesn't feel good to be rejected, does it? But we reject ourselves before we even make the call if we don't make it. So the only way we're going to increase and elevate our success is by taking action. Most people would rather be comfortable than do what's necessary to get the desired result. Most people would rather stay in their comfort zone than to step out and get the result that they want. Everything that you want is just outside your comfort zone. If it were, you would have it. So if you want to elevate your success, whatever success means to you, success isn't just material. It could be a relationship with a spouse or a partner or children. Whatever that is for you, it could be more health. Everything is outside of your comfort zone. The greatest enemy to human potential is your comfort zone.
Yep.
There was an action that I took earlier in my career that had a profound impact on my professional career, and I didn't even realize it at the time, the impact it had. When I was 24 years old, I was working at a credit union as the assistant call center manager, and I was managing 13 employees. And about a year into that position, I realized that I loved the people side of the business. I loved leadership. And so I decided I wanted to pursue a career in human resources. So I enrolled in a class on my own time, and I requested a meeting with the vice president of human resources. And I told her, I really want to move to your department. What do I need to do to move to the HR department? And she said, well, we don't have any positions open. She was very encouraging. She encouraged me to continue my studies, but she said, I really can't help you. Well, 6 months later, she called me and said, we're about to post a human resources generalist position. And I know you're interested. I just want to let you know you're going to have to apply like everybody else, but we're about to post that position. So I applied for that position, and so did another assistant manager in a different department. That assistant manager had more experience at the credit union. She had worked there longer. She was a great performer, and she had more experience managing people. But the VP of HR chose me for that position. And she said the reason was that I took it upon myself to ask for a meeting with her, and that I was obviously passionate and really wanted to pursue HR. And so she was willing to take a chance on me. And so I got that position. Now, the story actually didn't end there. Over the next 4 years, I learned so much about HR. I was promoted. And 4 years later, the vice president's husband got transferred to a different state. She recommended me for the VP position. And 2 weeks after my 30th birthday, I was promoted to vice president of human resources. Had I not taken that action and been bold enough to go ask for that meeting, that never would have happened, and I'm convinced I would not be here with you today. I don't know how my career would have gone, but I never would have gone into the HR track. And it just happened to be that her husband was transferred and that opportunity came up. So our actions can lead us to those opportunities. Even if you're not super clear about what you want yet, start taking those actions. It'll lead you to more clarity. Very important piece. So Ed Foreman said, winners are the people who make a habit of doing things the losers are uncomfortable doing. So the people who we see who are successful, remember those highly successful people? They have a bias for action. They are action-oriented. They get out there even when they're uncomfortable. Now, taking action could be starting a workout regime. It could be asking for what you want at work. It could be terminating an employee who's an underperformer. It could be asking for support. Taking action could be many things. So I want you to think about what are some things that you need to take action on. What are some things that you need to take action on? Remember, this is the most important piece. So it could be doctor appointments. Maybe you've been putting off your doctor appointments. I hear this quite a bit in these sessions that I do. People who don't schedule their doctor appointments. So take a few minutes in your handouts. Who has a page number for me? She's going to check on you. One of the best ways to take action is to have an accountability partner. To tell someone you're about to do it. If you tell someone you're going to start a workout regimen, and they keep asking you, right? Don't you eventually start to feel a little guilty? Like, I'm going to start doing it. All right, one more. Yes. Yeah, you. Or take action.
I have to find 5 ladies. I have to give away $1,000 in Crystal Swarovski by the end of this month. So I have to find 5 ladies who want to get some of that free jewelry.
I would like some.
Okay.
Before I leave on vacation Friday.
Okay, so I think today you have some ladies who are willing to help you with that, right, ladies? So come see her after to take advantage. Awesome. See, when you share your goals, when you share your vision, people can help you. They can support you with that. Awesome. All right, great. Well, this is our last principle of it today. This is one of my personal favorites. It's called Drop Out of the Ain't It Awful Club. How many of you have a negative person in your life? Like, get celebrated, right? All right.
Drop out of it.
What happens, have any of you ever gone to lunch or dinner? Have any of you ever gone to lunch or dinner or coffee with someone who's negative? How do you feel after that? Negative. You need a shower? Yeah. So if you want to be more successful, and I really believe that the more success you start to have in your life, the more you need to reevaluate who you're hanging out with. Jim Rohn said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So we need to reevaluate and determine if these relationships are serving us. Do these people support you? Do they help you? Are they a positive influence or a negative influence? Many of us have negative influences in our life. So successful people surround themselves with successful people. So being more deliberate about finding that group like here and connecting with people who are in the same mindset as you. Because I guarantee you, when you go out and you start taking 100% responsibility for your life, and you start taking action, and you start doing these things and creating habits, you're going to see more success. And some people aren't going to like that. Some people aren't going to like that. Now, what do you do if one of the negative influences in your life is a family member? Any of you have any family members? Just cut them off, right? Yeah. Well, here's what I recommend. I recommend doing an association evaluator. We're not going to do this today, but I want you to start thinking about evaluating who you're associating with. And what I recommend is for you to sit down and make a list of the people you spend the most time with, and then put a plus or a minus. Are they a positive influence or a negative influence? Maybe there are some people you want to disassociate from. And that doesn't mean you have to call them up on the phone and say, I'm disassociating from you. It's like that phase out where you just start like not being available. Remember saying no more, choosing the birthday parties, choosing who you're going to spend your time with. Some of them you might want to limit your association with. So I have a brother, one of those brothers that you saw in that picture, who is very negative. Very, very negative. In fact, when I talk to him, I don't know if he ever says anything positive about his life or anybody else. We just are not similar. I don't know how we came from the same parents, but we did. And if you have that situation where you're like, where do these people who I call siblings come from? We're like, totally, we share 50% of the same genes, but I don't know how. So, I love my brother, and I can love him from afar. He lives in New York, so luckily I don't have to see him all the time. But I choose when I'm going to call him. I make it a choice that I'm in a better mood, that I know I can handle what's about to come at me, right? And making sure, and maybe I know he's in a better mood one day, so I know when to call, and I limit that association. My mother-in-law is another one of those people. This is being recorded. That's not going in the speaker reel, right? My mother-in-law, I love my mother-in-law. I have respect for my mother-in-law. But she's a negative person, very stoic, and is not very encouraging to people. So we limit, and we also have learned when we go over there for Sunday dinner, my husband's Italian, so Sunday dinner is a big thing. We just kind of let it wash over us. We go in with the mindset. Jack actually taught us this way of not letting things be absorbed, not absorbing. So he said, imagine a waterfall is falling over you, and that whatever people are saying or coming at you, it just flows right off. It's amazing how it works. So we go into Sunday dinner just thinking, this is how she is. We're not going to change it. It's okay. We can choose our response. So we're going to just let it wash over and not let it absorb. So who do you want to also spend more time with? Perhaps you have positive people or people you met here today you want to start making more of a connection with and have more positive people in your life and start to build those associations in your life. So at my children's school, there is a couple there, parents of one of my daughter's friends who we really enjoy, and we've taken deliberate action to invite them places and go to dinner and start to cultivate that relationship. So successful people surround themselves with successful people. Okay. So as we wrap up today, I love this image. It's called the iceberg illusion. The iceberg illusion is that what people see on the outside is the success, the tip of the iceberg. But what they don't see is everything that goes into that. In our instantaneous society, where you can go on Amazon and get a book within a day, and you can get on the internet and get whatever you want. You can have your TV channels to get any movie you want in a matter of seconds. We expect that things are going to happen immediately. That's why in January, people join the gym and they quit within a month. Because we have this mistaken belief that, one, just by joining, we're going to lose weight. Like, you actually have to go, right? Like, darn, it comes out of my bank account and it doesn't mean it's coming off my body too. And then, but when we go, we think, after 2 weeks we don't see results, and we think we give up. We get discouraged. This is what most people's experience is. We don't set ourselves up properly, knowing that it takes time. Success is the same way. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes persistence. People don't see that. They don't see the fears and the discipline and hard work and all the things that go in to creating success. I had someone come up to me after I spoke at a conference, a leadership conference once, and a woman came up and she said, you're so lucky that you can speak in front of people and you're not nervous, it doesn't bother you. And I almost laughed at her. I said, do you think I just one day stood up and could speak in front of people? It doesn't happen that way. That 1 hour speech that I did at that conference, I probably spent 40 to 50 hours preparing, between putting it together and the research and the designing and then practicing over and over to feel comfortable with the material. I'm no different than her, but you've got to put in the work. It's the discipline that happens to get to that place. No one just shows up. The person who you see is a classical pianist. They don't just have a talent, they had to cultivate that talent. They had to practice and practice and practice to get to that point. So if you leave here today, though, and you take some of those actions, you will see results. I guarantee it, I know you will. So I want you to just think in the last page of your handouts there, some key takeaways from today. Just jot down some key things that you want to take action on, some key takeaways from our session. Just take a couple minutes. from a few of you some key takeaways. What are some key takeaways from the session? Take responsibility and take action. Stop complaining. You learn more by doing than reading books. Great. Right here. Yes.
Change habits.
Change your habits. Yeah. Model what you want.
Be bold.
Be bold. Love it.
Don't wait for permission.
Don't wait for permission. Say that again. Stop rejecting yourself before you let others reject you. That's great, great. Yes.
Prioritize.
Prioritize. One more. 5% more responsibility. 5%. So these key takeaways won't happen unless you actually go take the action, right? So do that. So one of my favorite movies is called The Holiday. Any of you seen The Holiday? Where the two women change houses in different countries? Yeah. And so those of you who've seen it, if you haven't seen it, there's a character, her name's Iris. And Iris is out to dinner one night with an older gentleman, retired, he used to be a movie producer. And she's crying and complaining about this relationship, this breakup that she just had, and how awful her life is, and she's just really upset. And he looks at her and he said, Iris, there's two types of women that we have in the movie business. We have the leading lady and the best friend. I can see that you're leading lady material, but right now you're acting like the best friend. He says, be the leading lady of your life. And that's what I want to leave you here with today, to be the leading lady of your life. Don't be the best friend. Take charge, take that action, take that 100% responsibility, and be in charge of your life. There's a great book by Jeff Olson called The Slight Edge. He talks about every action, every decision you make in your life either leads you toward what you want or away from what you want. Should I have a third cookie or just two? That's my problem. Or ice cream? Do I give that person feedback or do I wait? Do I terminate that non-performing employee or do I not? Do I make that prospecting call or do I not do it? Every action you take compounds and leads you towards the life that you want or you don't want. There's power in those actions. Jim Rohn said, what is easy to do is also easy not to do. That's the difference between success and failure. So it's easy today to leave here and say, I learned something, but not take action on it. But it's also easy to go and take 5% more responsibility. Just do something to edge yourself towards elevating your success. It's a choice. You have a choice. So choose 100% responsibility. Choose to elevate your decisions. Choose to elevate your success, and you will elevate your life. Thank you so much for having me.
Lori, thank you so much.
Are you okay with a few questions?
Yes, absolutely.
Anyone
Love
have
it.
questions for Lori? We're only going to take a few questions, ladies.
Get right to it.
Accountability,
Yeah.
126 women to listen to.
It depends on the engagement, but I started raising my rates. I don't know if you're asking this in the concept of like starting to charge more, or you really want to know how much I charge.
No, I mean, like, for, like, team-wise, like,
Yeah.
coaching a team, coaching team leaders,
Yeah.
coaching staff,
Yeah, let's
like,
talk. It
coaching-
depends
yes.
on the engagement, but I want to also say that charge more than you think you're worth, because you're worth more than you think you're worth. So start charging when, I heard someone say, if I'm about to get sick, that's when I know I'm in the right range of what to charge. Like that's what you have to do. The value you bring is more than what you even think. The value to people.
Anybody else? Lori?
Are you hiring and how can I apply?
Oh, I love that. It's funny you say that. I am considering expanding, having some other trainers come on board as consultants in the business. So let's talk.
Thank you, Lou.
I have a quick question. Somebody was afraid to ask it, so I'm going to read it. How, as a woman, mother, wife, caregiver, do you create a solid work-life Yeah.
That was not Victoria.
I know, I ain't saying that. Without being labeled as weak or unfocused compared to your male counterparts, and a lot of us work in that environment.
I love this question. I love the work balance question, work-life balance. I really believe that we're in charge of our time, like I mentioned earlier. And I will tell you, there are days where I feel overwhelmed and just like it's completely chaotic. If you were to come to my house at 6 o'clock any weeknight, it would you'd be like kids running around screaming, had dinner or whatever. But what I've learned is that I have to have boundaries. So believe it or not, I do not work more than 40 hours a week. I've been able to grow my business. I've been in business 10 years last month, and I've grown my business every single year, and I have not ever worked more than 40 hours a week. So I'm extremely focused. So one thing I do is I plan my day the night before. I'm extremely focused the next day. I've taught myself, I still procrastinate once in a while, but I catch myself. And I use blocks of time, and I just get into it. I get into the work, I do what I have to do, but I also get help. And I think those of you who, particularly for women leaders, I don't know about you, but I feel guilty, the mom guilt a lot. Like I should be the one taking to the doctor appointments, I should be the one making dinner, I should be the one cleaning the house. Well, I delegate as much as I can on the home front as possible. So I have a housekeeper. We have a meal delivery service. We have 3 little kids. We do the best we can. My husband is a huge partner with me. He's a realtor, and he takes the kids for doctor appointments. I'm there for the main events, but I ask for help. I get help. I pay for that help. I'm a business owner, so I see it as an investment in myself and in my business. And then I have boundaries. So I rarely check email after 6 o'clock. I'm actually learning also to, when I go on vacation, disconnecting and have things go to my assistant. So I think boundaries are a really important piece. And then finally, your expectations. So don't expect to be superwoman. We can't do it all. One of my mentors said, you can have it all, but you can't do it all. You can have it all, but you can't do it all. So ask for help if you have family members or people who can help support you in that. I can talk about that for an hour.
One more question?
Yes, as it relates to the negativity piece,
Yeah.
what if you're living with that negativity?
What if you're living with a negative person?
Yes.
I think everything, yeah. So this is what I would say that. I mean, everything in life is a choice, right? So we get to choose. Now, I understand that sometimes it's not as easy as saying you just like disassociate. Maybe you're in a partnership or a marriage, and maybe it's a conversation of this is what I'm creating in my life, and I want you on board. You know, I do believe though that sometimes, I know for me this has happened with friendships and even family members. As we grow, we outgrow people, and hopefully you can get, you know, if it's a partner, you get them on board with where you want to grow. You know, my husband, I'm very fortunate that he loves to read this stuff. I send him to everything I go to. I sent him to a week with Jack Canfield, and he's like, okay, I'll go. Like, what is this about? Like a lot of hugging, but he went. So, you know, if you can enroll your partner, your spouse, someone in what you're doing and help them see the vision and where you want to go and help them, you know, but everything is a choice. You can't change another person. We can't change I can't change my brother. I can't change my mother-in-law. If we spend our lives trying to change people, we're going to be disappointed. So it might be lowering expectations. And so I don't know if I have the true answer for you for that, because every situation I know is different. But I wouldn't let that negativity absorb into my life. I choose to, or at least surround yourself with other people who can be really supportive of you.
Lori, thank you again.
Thank you so much.